Assalamualaikum dan salam Ramadan. Anda bersama dengan saya Nurhana Ismail dan anda sedang menyaksikan Ramadan Awani. Hari ini kami bersama khas dari Royal Bintang The Curve Damansara dan tamu saya hari ini diterbangkan khas dari Kanada. Beliau adalah seorang perunding serta pakar kaunseling dalam perkahwinan serta rumah tangga dan saya bersama dengan Syekh Riyad Al-Zazi. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum. Ahlan.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ahlan. Welcome to Malaysia. Marhaba.
How do you say that in Malaysian?
Selamat datang.
Selamat datang. Selamat datang. Selamat datang.
Thank you so much.
Waalaikumsalam.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for being with us. How do you find the stay in Malaysia? How's the
Alhamdulillah, this is Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. First of all, I'd like to thank you for this invite. This is my fourth time actually in Malaysia.
To Malaysia.
And it's just like my second home country. I love coming here, although it's far,
Yes.
very far. But it's always a pleasure to come to Malaysia.
Right, this is actually the second time I met you.
Okay.
Because the first time was last month during your program Before and After I Say I Do.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right.
Anyway, first and foremost, how do you find the youth and also the dakwah event and program in Malaysia? Is it overwhelming as much as the ones in Canada or in UK?
Well, we do have, alhamdulillah, in Canada quite few programs for the youth. We
Okay.
do them on sometimes on a weekly basis, mostly on weekends, or sometimes like we have like long weekends, and then we do certain activities for the youth. But here in Malaysia, I do find that there's also quite a lot of programs. I'm not too familiar with the entire scheme, but
Right.
I'm part of an institution called Al-Maghrib Institute, and then they sent me here from time to time to teach. And I found that the majority of the people that attend our seminars are mostly from the youth. So this is really a good thing,
Alhamdulillah.
because we try to speak their language. We try to speak a language that can be understood by the youth.
Right. How do you see the role of the da'i itself in order to attract the youth? Because youth, they have a different approach. What do you think is the best approach for the youth? I mean, from the da'i to actually attract them to come to our program more and to actually join the event, and also the youth from the male gender, because sometimes I see the male, they lack in joining this certain kind of event, and mostly it's from the female gender.
That's
so
right.
how do you have to say about this?
Well, you see, when I was in the US, I used to tell them, if the youth don't come to the masjid, we need to bring the masjid to them. So we do find, unfortunately, sometimes some elderly people who do not know how to communicate with the youth. So they kick the youth out from the community centers, for the Islamic centers. It's a lack of a communication. And the Prophet Muhammad, he knew how to bridge that gap, how to speak a language that can be understood by the youth, that can be understood by the elders, that can be understood by male and female, So this is the thing that we're somewhat lacking here.
Yeah.
So we need to be more open towards the youth. Try to understand their mentality. Try to understand their challenges. Try to, because a lot of them, when you tell them to come to the masjid, a masjid for them is just like a place to worship, and then they will go. But at the time of Rasulullah, the place of like a masjid was not just a place of worship, but a place of activities.
Right. And sometimes the way I see it, right after their prayers, they went straight to home or straight to work. So that is something that we need to tackle. You yourself, personally, how would you approach the youth, me, and also the ones in our audience?
In my center, in the center that we come from, we have certain activities for the youth. For instance, we have a basketball court inside the center.
Okay.
We have a room where we have ping pong tables and pool and squash. And so they come, we invite them. After the prayer, we go and play. We play with them. And then after the prayer, we bring me pizza or something.
That is a culture rarely seen in Malaysia, actually.
Okay, well, like I said, we need to attract the youth to come to the masjid. In fact, one time I had a petition from the parents saying, Sheikh, we need you to stay here because we want the youth. The youth, they only come to your events. So we need to try to attract them. So how can we attract them? Through certain halal activities. Instead of them going, exactly.
Yes.
I mean, masjid, it's na'am, you pray and stuff, and maybe you can take advantage and give them a lecture at the same time, trying to make them love coming to the masjid. So you need to play, smart with them, inshallah.
And sometimes the way I see nowadays, the da'i, despite, the age gap, so these type of activities, they can actually bridge the gap between the youth and also the da'i.
Absolutely.
All right. inspiring and very great idea there, and I hope the masjids in Malaysia, we can actually apply this kind of activities. We are starting to, but you know, the progress is rather slow, but I would see inshallah that in few years to come the progress would be
I hope
as
so,
fast.
inshallah.
Yes.
Wallah, I hope so, because we're not doing anything that contradicts our Sharia, that
Yeah.
contradicts Islam. We're just inviting the youth, which are the air that we breathe. The Prophet ﷺ used to attribute a lot of importance to the youth.
Yeah.
If you talk about Sahabis, the Umar and Ali and Uthman and others, they were youth, you know,
Yes.
20, 30 years old. They were not like 50, 60-year-old people at the time when Prophet, you know, introduced Islam. They were all youth. So the Prophet knew how to bridge that gap and how to speak, with a language that could be understood by them. So this is what, in fact, we need to do today, inshallah ta'ala.
Alright, okay. Shay will be talking. We'll be taking a short break. We'll be talking more about attracting the dakwah program towards the youth. Selepas ini di Ramadan AWANI, jangan ke mana-mana. Bertemu kembali di Ramadan AWANI. Saya bersiaran dari The Royal Bintang The Curve Damansara dan saya bersama dengan seorang perunding sekaunselor perkahwinan iaitu Syekh Riyad Auzazi, datangkan khas dari Kanada. Syekh, just now we talk about how to attract dakwah towards the youth. Right. I was actually quite intrigued with the program that you've conducted last month about the before and after ICIDU, because I'm sure a lot of youth out there, they have plans to get married, you know, at the same time they would want to, you know, achieve whatever goals, especially in their career, but at the same time they feel empty, so they would want to, you know, get married as fast as possible. So now, before we move on to the marriage itself, how do you see the culture of, you know, the flirting and also dating in social media?
Okay, well, with regard to dating is, we have to be very careful when we talk about dating in Islam, because we don't have such a thing as dating in Islam.
Right.
I mean, I've got to be really, you know, honest, and
yes,
transparent,
yes.
because I'd like to say something, but I don't want to disappoint certain people, in fact, to misunderstand the Islam and misunderstand the deen. We don't have such a thing as dating in Islam. Like taking a girl out and you know, going out dancing and whatnot. But now you mentioned something about, you know, social media.
Social media,
you know, getting
Facebook,
to know, exactly,
Twitter.
building relationships, I would call it.
Yes,
Instead
yes.
of dating, maybe building relationships through social media like Facebook and others. Well, I'm a marriage officer in Canada and a counselor as well. So one needs to be very, very, very careful in building these types of relationship
Yes.
through media.
Media, social.
Right? If I were to find, let's say, someone that I'm interested in the media, through, let's say, whatever, you know, media mean, and then we got to know one another, we need to make sure that it goes in accordance with some Islamic etiquettes. I mean, this is just for, again, for the safety of both the genders, the sister and the brother, because you don't want, this is the problem, you don't want feelings to be involved. If feelings are involved, or feelings get developed through communicating and chatting and whatnot, then let's say if she's in love with that person or he's in love with her, you know, you may fall into doing something haram, you know, before even having that contract that bond you together.
Yes.
So we need to be really quite, you know, careful on how to build these relationships. What I think, and what I think they should do, in fact, is if I were to meet a person through the social media, I need to ask certain questions, you know, if I'm serious about marriage, certain questions pertinent to marriage, to understand the thinking of that person. If there is some sort of compatibility with that person, then I can take it to the next stage. The next stage is to involve the parents, involve the appropriate people to make it more official, you know, and then go from there. I mean, so that we make sure that things are done accordingly, inshallah ta'ala. We don't want to do anything wrong, in fact, because you see, this is marriage. You don't want to start your marriage based on a bad foundation. You don't want to start something with haram. How would you live your life with that person that, in fact, the origin of it was haram? Allah will not bless that marriage. So that's why I'm saying you need to be really careful.
All right. Now, so basically, it's okay. You know, it's okay if you will get to know your future wife or future husband in social media. It's just there are certain etiquettes that we need to follow, certain etiquettes in Islam that we need to follow. Right? Maybe you have a specific suggestions or specific, you know, etiquettes that we need to adhere, especially in social media, other than, you know, asking the right questions, the kind of way for you to approach your future husband and wife, or maybe that person has that, interested in someone, but she doesn't know how is the best way in Islam to approach that person. Maybe you have any suggestions for them?
Well, you see, in social media, sometimes you're talking to the unknown. I mean, I'm talking to a person, but that person may not be the person that I'm talking to, or they claim to be, right? So let's say, I got to know some guy, or, for you, let's say, you're chatting with some person who says he's from Canada, right? And maybe you're chatting with a 5-year-old, I don't know.
And suddenly I'm head over heels with this guy, even though I have not met him.
And you want to meet the guy that you want to marry at some point, right? You chatting with him, and okay, everything goes fine. You like the thinking, you like the communication. So you want to take it one notch up. So at some point, you want to meet this person. How are you going to meet with him? Are we just going to meet online? How are you going to do that? So you need to meet that person, that in person.
Yes.
So let's make it more realistic. Let's say here in Malaysia, I'm talking to someone, a lady who's also in Malaysia. We're communicating through this medium, chatting service, and about marriage. The view of marriage, why I want to get married, what are my vision, my message in life, what do I want to do, So I'm talking about all this. Once we get some base foundation, base agreement, then I want to take it to the next step. I want to meet this person. I want to see this person, live. Is it this person? Because this is in Islam. In Islam, it's my right and your right as a woman, and my right as a man to see one another before marriage. And sometimes you find some shuyukh, really, and my message to the imams out there, sometimes they make it so hard, saying that you cannot see the person that you marry until the time of the nikah. This is against the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu. This is really against the sunnah. You have to see the person that you want to marry. So make sure that there's some sort of attractiveness there between the two sexes. So if you want to see that person, how are you going to do it? You need to meet in person. But can you meet only two of you? No. This is another thing that you have to be careful about, making sure that there's a shepherd in there, like some maharim in there. So the best approach for me, if I'm a man, if I'm really serious and I feel Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if I want to meet with you, first of all, I need to engage my parents to come and knock through your door and go through your parents as well, making sure that things are going through the appropriate steps and appropriate channels. Right.
So let me get this, let me sum up whatever that you have actually told. Whichever medium that we'd like to actually get to know our future husband and wife, the intentions need to be good. You have to follow the right etiquette in Islam. You have to adhere the right etiquette in Islam, and make sure whichever the medium is halal and also blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Absolutely. Maybe I can help with one more thing here. For some youth, they may say, I don't want to involve my parents until I'm fully sure. Okay, you want to see this person, make sure that at least when you meet, don't meet, just the two of you. Have someone be there, maybe two friends or whatnot, and make sure that when you're sitting together, there's some sort of space between the two, and there's some sort of etiquettes in there, Islamic etiquettes. Go straight, be sincere, asking the right questions. You see the person, asking her or asking him the right questions, and then if you feel comfortable, with what you see and what we hear, then maybe another salat istikhara called the consultation prayer, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless your decision that you want to make. And if you feel good, you may engage your parents, inshallah ta'ala, to go and visit her parents, and then you move on, from the appropriate channel.
Yes, so a lot might not realize it's actually safer to bring a shepherd along.
Absolutely.
Because we might not know if he's a serial killer, if he's, anything can happen, right?
Absolutely, but not only that. I mean, I may be there with you, let's say, and then I have a friend or a cousin or someone who's passing by and he sees me with you. I mean, people talk and things like that. So, just to avoid any wrongdoings and whatnot, safer, as the Prophet ﷺ said, because shaitan, like he says, is the third. So we don't want to have shaitan in between us, so making sure that we have a shepherd.
Right, Sheikh, we'll be taking another break. Next, we're talking more about after I say I do. Alright, selepas ini di Awani, di Ramadan Awani, jangan ke mana-mana, saya bersama dengan Sheikh Riyad Urzazi. Bertemu kembali di Ramadan Awani. Saya bersama dengan perunding perkahwinan serta kaunselor perkahwinan Sheikh Riyad Urzazi. Kami bersiaran dari The Royal Bintang, The Curve Damansara. Sheikh, thank you once again. Right, Sheikh, just now we talk about the etiquettes in dating. in dating in Islam, the right dating in Islam, and also how are we going to pursue our partners, our future partners. All right, now that is before the marriage. See, during, this is like a while, during the marriage, before the marriage is going to happen, a lot of conflicts. Especially, I mean, not just in other countries, but here in Malaysia, we are experiencing the same. You know, the parents' approval, and also there's this, there's nikah, and also the events that we need to, go through. Okay, now I'm sure a lot of future bride and groom, they have conflicts with their families. They would want to do this way, but the parents want to do this way. There's conflicts behind that. So how do you bridge, and how do you bridge this conflict that is actually, it's common?
Okay.
How do you do this?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Well, listen, there's never something called my way or the highway. Some people, they believe like it's either this way or there's
Yes.
always win-win situations. But I want to make sure, this is something really important. I want to make sure that my ceremony, let's say, the wedding ceremony, is done in accordance with
Islam.
Islam. I don't want to do anything haram to start my life with my wife or my husband, with my spouse. I want to make sure that everything we do can be fun, but halal fun.
Okay.
I say halal fun, really, because there's such a thing as halal fun. There's some people who think Islam is only قال الله قال رسول الله. There is no fun in Islam.
Right.
There's some people who think really like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I mean, there's
Very
like
rigid.
haram, this is haram. La, you can have fun in Islam.
Yeah.
The weddings at the time of Rasulullah, the sisters, the Ansaris, like the Prophet says, go and tell the Ansaris, and then the Ansaris, the women from the Ansars, they announce the marriage by hearing the daf, they call it the daf, and then announcing marriage, and there's like a wedding and food and meat, and to announce a marriage, so people can have fun. But today's fun has gone somewhat beyond the limit of an Islamic, the Islamic etiquettes. So
Or maybe you can be honest here. So the kind of fun that is actually has gone beyond.
Well, maybe, I mean, there are a lot of things, right?
Right.
I mean, such like the intermingling, between different sexes, and the music and the dancing with the different, I mean, these are things that may go beyond the limit of the Islamic etiquette. So we want to make sure that, it's I'm not saying, just do Quran and Hadith, just like, a funeral. No, we don't want, we want to make sure that it is wedding. People are having fun. If they're the sisters out there together, they may, do their own singing and dancing and stuff like that. The brothers can do the same thing, on their own. Some Islamic nasheeds to make it fun. So I need to make sure that my parents want my happiness. If my parents really who claim that they do want my happiness, and obviously,
Right.
you talk to any parent, you say, yeah, of course I want the happiness of my children. So if you want my happiness, make sure that help me live my life in accordance with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Help me, oh my dad, help me, oh my mom, to start my life with my spouse in accordance with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that Allah can bless my marriage. So here, if there is a conflict, I could work it out nicely, smoothly with my parents. And I don't think your parents, if you speak to them, with some hikmah, and you try to, make it so emotional that we don't want to displease Allah, right?
Yeah.
So I think there'll be, inshallah ta'ala, some sort of consensus between the two parties.
Right. Then again, another reason why sometimes most of the youth here in Malaysia, they don't get married too soon, is because probably they don't have enough money to actually make to actually perform the ceremony and stuff like that. So how do you actually tackle this kind of problem? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of money to spend, and
Okay, well, you see, let's say the community I come from, it's a lot of Asians in North America, and they have this culture whereby they get married, early enough when they're, let's say, in university, and then in the first year or two or whatnot in marriage, they tend to live with their parents.
okay,
Right. So I mean, I'm not too much, in favor for this particular, let's say, way of maybe living with your parents. But if, let's say, I'm still going to school, like university, and my wife, she's also going to school or whatnot, and I still don't have the means to afford an apartment,
yes.
financial, or to have maybe this wedding whereby, then if
Not
my
grand, but just moderate, right?
yeah, moderate, exactly. Then if with the understanding, making sure that my wife and my spouse will have a common understanding, then in the interim, maybe they would live with the parents for some time until they start standing on their feet to be able to afford separate
Be more
accommodation.
independent,
Exactly.
financially
I
independent.
find that a lot within the Asian community in North America. I don't know about Malaysia here, really, if that's possible. In our country as well, like let's say in the Arab countries, we find that as well. And we find that the families, really, they help the prospects, they help the groom and the bride, sometimes the parents, they buy an apartment for them just to let them go in the beginning, or sometimes the immediate family, they come up and they pitch in to help out and whatnot. So this is what I see from other cultures. I'm not too familiar with the Malaysian culture, and I don't know if they willing to sort of like help out, or do you really have to provide a separate accommodation from day one to your spouse? I don't know. I mean, maybe you could tell me. And
I think whatever that you suggest is actually a great idea, because the community at the end of the day has to help out. The community plays an important role to actually, because it took the whole community to grow and to raise a family. So maybe it's a good idea for the whole community, to actually help a little, one contributes something, the other family contributes something.
Well, otherwise, like you said, then
I think we need to relive that culture again in Malaysia.
Well, this is the thing.
We need to relive that culture again, where the whole community, each and every family,
Try to
help out a
out,
couple.
exactly.
Yes.
This is the thing, because at some point, if there's no help, I mean,
Yes.
then nobody was
I
willing to
totally
get
agree.
married, right? Because I cannot financially provide for you.
Yes.
You cannot provide, so because the husband is solely responsible to provide for the wife. I mean, this has to be, known that regardless of the wife, whether she works and makes money, the husband, in front of Allah, is responsible to provide for the wife. So now, if the husband is not able to provide, maybe the wife can help out, right?
Yeah.
But I would say that maybe also the community, like the families and whatnot, can help out, until to just give them that first step, that once, and then they'll be on their own. Inshallah.
We need to start relive that culture, helping out others. All right, Shi, last but not least, how do you find this Ramadan, during Ramadan, maybe it's the best way for each and every one of us, to actually find deep within ourselves, to muhasabah, to muhasabah, so that, we can cleanse ourselves, and at the same time, once it is done, we can actually find the right partner. Maybe you have something to say about that,
Ramadan, huh?
Yeah.
Wallahi, a lot of people
It's
don't
always
know,
a good month, to look for
to use Ramadan to find a husband and a wife. Ramadan, a lot of people don't know the secrets of Ramadan. Wallahi, there's so many secrets. If the Sahaba, they used to pray 6 months before Ramadan, oh Allah, make us witness Ramadan.
MashaAllah.
Because there's so many secrets. It is the only month mentioned by name in the Quran. In Ramadan.
No other months,
No
but
other months.
Ramadan.
Only Ramadan, Allah mentions Ramadan by name in the Quran to show you the significance of this month. Not only that, all the divine books, divine revelations were revealed in Ramadan. Bible, Torah, the scrolls of Ibrahim, Al-Quran, all revealed in Ramadan.
Now I know something. I didn't know that before.
Yeah, I mean, this is a month whereby, subhanallah, it teaches you so many things. It teaches you how to fear Allah. It teaches you how to build taqwa, faith and piety. It teaches you something called muraqabah. Muraqabah, which means watchfulness.
Okay.
That Allah is watching you. I'm fasting. I'm fast. You don't go around telling people, hey, I'm fasting, I'm fasting. Don't do that, right? So it teaches you that it's between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's so many lessons really we learn from Ramadan. Not only that. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Ramadan.
Still.
The deeds are multiplied. The rewards are multiplied in Ramadan. Normally when you recite one ayah from the Quran or one harf, let's say Bismillahi, Bismi, Ba, Sin, Mim.
That is rewarded
Ba is 10
twice.
hasanat.
Yeah.
Normally, in any regular day, Bismi, Ba, Sin, Mim. So Ba is 10 hasanat, Sin is 10 hasanat, Mim is 10 hasanat. In Ramadan, times 700 or even more.
Times 7. Okay, that's a lot.
700 or even more.
That's a lot.
It's Ramadan.
Yeah.
That's why it's called
Ramadan.
Ramadan. It's a very, wallahi, people, like I said, a lot of people do not know the secrets of Ramadan. And here is the beauty. Every night in Ramadan, not only in the night of the power. Laylatul Qadr. What do you call Laylatul Qadr in Malaysian?
Laylatul Qadr.
Laylatul Qadr. Okay, brothers and sisters out there, not only in Laylatul Qadr, like people think that people will be safe from hellfire.
Right.
Every night in Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be saving souls from hellfire.
MashaAllah.
Every night in Ramadan until the end of Ramadan. This hadith sahih from the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam.
Shay, that's very enlightening.
I mean,
Very
a lot
enlightening.
of things, except
Right.
if we don't want,
Okay.
But also, here's a very important thing, sister.
Okay.
A lot of people, they fast in Ramadan, but they do haram things in Ramadan. Like, okay, I have bread, it's halal. My bread is halal, but I don't eat it because I'm
Right.
fasting. But I eat people's flesh. I backbite. Here I'm fasting,
I
yet
slander.
I'm eating haram meat.
So that is the things that we should avoid.
Of course, you should avoid
Right.
haram. Like I don't
Yes.
want to, I'm leaving halal meat, and I eat haram
Yeah.
meat out there, by backbiting people, backstabbing, doing haram and whatnot. So this is a time where I should come close to Allah subhanahu wa
I
ta'ala.
hope we are all protected from doing such things. Unfortunately, Shay, that is the only time we have with you. Thank you so much for being with
You're
us.
very welcome.
Alright, balas saudara, itu saja masa yang kita ada di Ramadan Awani. InsyaAllah kita akan berjumpa lagi di episod yang akan datang. Saya Nuhana Ismail, salam hormat dan Assalamualaikum. Salam Ramadan.